The Inter-Islands Tourism Policy Forum presenting a vision for island tourism was incepted in 1997 with 4 local governments, Jeju, Bali, Hainan, and Okinawa. Over the years, it has extended its reach and influence across the world and grown into a platform for multilateral cooperation with 10 local governments discussing island tourism policies and jointly developing the global tourism market today. The ITOP Forum aims to deal with countless issues in various areas of the tourism industry in search for a better tomorrow for this beautiful islands in the world.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. My name is Kim Dae, the Master of Ceremony. COVID-19 has been ongoing worldwide for the last 2 years. The global is now seeking ways to mutually exist with the virus. Travel bubble and other measures started to kick in to resume our exchange in tourism by air. And we also started to provide contactless technologies. And along with that, we are hosting the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. And the topic today is a post-COVID era where the island tourism should go. And we are gathered by experts today to seek safer and more suitable tourism measures together. in every corner of the globe is now concerning how to respond to this difficult time. As we're entering the era of with COVID, some preparation is needed, which we can discuss at this meaningful event. And I hope you stay tuned until the end to bear fruits from this meaningful event. Now I would like to introduce the VIPs who are shining this event. And every time I call the name, please give them a warm round of applause. First, I would like to introduce the international guests. Deputy Minister Nushad Mohammed, Minister of Tourism of Maldives. Yolanda PERDOMO, Senior Tourism Strategist of ICF. Welcome. Director Hwang-Hae-guk of UNWTO. Assistant Director Kim Nuri of the Regional Department for Asia Pacific, UNWTO. Professor Park Sang-won of Kyung-hee University. Vice Chairperson Kyu-Hwan of the Tourism Sciences Society of Korea. General Kwon-Soo, General Manager Kwon-Soo of Korea Culture Information Service Agency. General Manager Kim Young-mi of the Tourism Big Data Department of Korean Tourism Organization. Representative Park Jae-ah of a Pacific Tourism Organization. Chairperson Seong-Hwa of Jeju Tourism Sciences Society. Thank you very much. Now Jeju guests. Also, please welcome them with a big hand. Vice Chair Oh Young-hee of a Culture, Tourism and Sports Committee of a Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. Director Kim Seung-bae of Tourism, Jeju Province. CEO Ko Eun-Sook of a Jeju Tourism Organization. Last but not least, the host, Vice Governor Ko Young-kwon of Political Affairs, Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time to be here with us today. Then let's begin the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. First, we would like to hear opening remarks from CEO Ko Eun-Sook of Jeju Tourism Organization. Let's welcome CEO Ko Eun-Sook. Good afternoon. My name is Ko Eun-Sook, CEO of Jeju Tourism Organization. COVID-19 hit hard on tourism, and this is meaningful that we are hosting the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. Thank you very much for those who support with a great interest, and that includes Vice Governor Ko Young-kwon and Vice Chair Oh Young-hee of a Culture, Tourism and Sports Committee. And despite the difficulties and crises in tourism, WTO of the UN sent of great support, and I would like to appreciate Director Hwang-Hae-guk and Kim Nuri, Yolanda PERDOMO, Professor Park Sang-won, and Vice Minister Nushad, and also Ida Ayunda Yustikarini from Bali, Shafang-u from Hainan, China, Leka Kudachiku, the Governor Secretary of a Southern Province of Sri Lanka. And we have many more guests and those who secure the time to be with us here on site and online. And please accept my apology that I cannot call out all the names, distinguished guests. The ITOP seminar has common issue that is that we are the island and it's exposed to vulnerability and isolation. And a few years ago, we were concerned about over-tourism, but right now we are worried about collapse of the industry due to COVID-19. And to respond to these difficult times, we still have to move forward in a sustainable manner. And about 15 years ago, we started and initiated this forum and the platform to be together, and that is why this is meaningful. Unprecedented virus hit us hard, and now tourism has become a memory from old times, and we almost forgot about the excitement before trips, exotic scenery, and the great emotions from them. And all these feelings are fading away, and we are living in a difficult times in daily lives. However, that also reflects the enthusiasm that people want for tourism. And that is why we are hosting this seminar under the topic of in the post-COVID era, where the island tourism should go. Distinguished guests, according to UNWTO report, after the official announcement of a pandemic, this tourism market went back to that of 30 years ago. But with COVID, flights grounded, but still we are trying to resume our tourism activities, and it is time for us to think of measures to resume the tourism, and the tourist industry is moving forward to prepare for such resuming. So at the 5th International Policy Seminar, we are seeking measures to survive as an island, and I hope to see vibrant discussions. And to think about that together, we have experts from UNWTO and many other member states. And I hope to have some more profound discussions among all the distinguished guests. I hope you will have a meaningful and fruitful time together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your opening speech. So she talked about the role and expectations of the island tour or tourism after COVID-19. Now I'd like to invite Yong-hee, Vice Chair of Culture, Tourism and Sports Committee from Jeju Special Self-Governing Province Council for a welcome message. Please welcome with a big hand. Good afternoon. I'm Yong-hee, Vice Chair of Culture, Tourism and Sports Committee. Different island states have different things to offer. Jeju, or the color of Jeju, is gold. When we have a lot of Jeju tangerine that you can enjoy. I'd like to first of all congratulate you on the opening of the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. I'd like to extend my welcome to all the participants as well as the experts and those of you who are joining us online today. My special thanks go to Ms. Kwon-Soo, CEO of JAO, and all the staff members of Jeju Tourism Organization for their hard work to prepare for this event. Without COVID-19 pandemic, it could have been possible to invite all the participants and experts in person to the island of Jeju and show you around so that you can experience what Jeju can offer, but it is my deepest regret that we cannot have you in person for this event. However, we are going to have a full recovery sooner than later from the COVID-19 pandemic. We are at a stage where we are now overcoming the final difficulties of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I look forward to the day that we will be finally over the pandemic and have a full recovery so that we can enjoy once again the rebound of the tourism industry and it is time for us to share our experiences and encourage each other so that we can get together to overcome the final stages of the crisis. I wish a successful seminar today, and once again, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you for your warm regards, and I am sure you will further exert to make Jeju better place as a tourism destination. Now let's invite Vice Governor Ko Young-kwon of Jeju Province. Good afternoon. My name is Ko Young-kwon, Vice Governor of Political Affairs of Jeju Province. Despite COVID-19, we are gathered here for the 5th ITOP International Policy Forum, and I am honored to welcome all of you in our island Jeju. Mulada PERDOMO, the keynote speaker, Pulkit Lamba, a manager from Google, Nushat Mohammed, a Deputy Minister of Tourism in Maldives, and many other speakers, I thank you for your time and great presentation in advance. Vice Chair Yong-hee, CEO Kwon-Soo of Jeju Tourism Organization, and many guests deserve my appreciation. Unprecedented pandemic called COVID-19 hit hard on the entire globe. Jeju heavily relied on tourism, and I'm sure it goes the same to member states of ITOP. Thankfully, we are having higher rate of vaccination, and UNWTO is seeking ways to resume the boost of the industry. However, uncertainty still remains due to COVID-19. I hope the seminar could find answers in the post-COVID era with the question of where should the island tourism go regarding the measures to respond in these difficult times. Future island visions will be presented and suggested at this forum. I thank you.
Thank you very much for your messages. Now please remain on the stage. We'd like to invite other VIPs onto the stage for a group photo session. After taking the group photo, we're going to move on to the keynote speech. So all the VIP guests, please come onto the stage.
네, 무대에서 첫 번째, 두 번째 줄까지 무대 위로 자리해 주시면 감사드리겠습니다. 귀한 발걸음 해주시.
Thank you very much for your participation. To celebrate the opening of the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar, we are going to have a group photo session with the VIP guests.
네, 정면에 미디어에서도 많이 참석해 주셨는데요. 카메라 바라봐 주시고.
We also have the presence of Korean media, so VIP guests, please face the camera in front of you.
많은 분들 다 담을 수 있도록 조금씩 붙어서 서주시면 더욱 좋지 않을까 생각이 듭니다.
You can stay closer for the photo, please. And please face the camera in front of you and smile.
네, 그리고 오늘 포스트 코로나 시대
We want to make sure that we have in-depth discussions for the recovery of island tourism, and we're going to shout fighting for the picture. Thank you. You may return to your seats.
이렇게 제5회 ITOP 국제
So this is the end of the opening ceremony of the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. And now let us move on to the first speech. And the speaker is Mr. Yolanda PERDOMO, Senior Tourism Strategist from ICF. He has traveled all the way from Spain to Korea. Please welcome with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon. It's a true pleasure to attend this ITOP conference. Thank you for inviting me. 감사합니다. I would like to start with an overview of some trends that are affecting the any tourism value proposition. Actually, these trends were there before, but they have been accelerated by the crisis, by the pandemic. The first one is this conscious or transformational travel. This is something that was happening before, but it was just for like a minority of travelers, those that were described as the creative society. However, if something has happened with the pandemic, it's this deep sense of fragility in people. And now we see this wish to travel differently in much more people than before. What do we see? We see a need like for self-realization, deeper cooperation, and overall the need to leave a legacy. There was a theory also before stated by writers and authors like Raj Sisodia, and he said that this is the first time in history that there is a majority of people who are over 40 years old, and that this changes everything, including tourism, because when you're over 40, you want to transcend, you want to leave a legacy after you. So this has a big impact on tourism, and as we see this, I mean, this is inspired in the Maslow pyramid, but if you see here, when people are looking for self-esteem, they, in terms of tourism, they are looking for innovative experiences. But when you're looking for self-realization, then you're looking for a transformative experience. And this is a step ahead. This goes beyond what we have been doing before in terms of product development in tourism, because the activities need to be deeply transformative and deeply immersive. The second trend was also there before. Sustainability has been a very big issue for many years, but this has expanded because people are looking now to have a true impact that is sustainable, and they are looking for tangible projects where through they can really demonstrate that what they are doing is fully sustainable. However, when we talk about sustainability, sometimes we forget that sustainability has 3 dimensions, and we only think of the environmental dimension, which is obviously very important. But there are other 2 that we have to take into consideration. First is the economic side of it, and the second one is the social element. And this is extremely important in tourism because what we do has to have a positive impact along the value chain for all the stakeholders related to tourism. And if you see here, this is from a survey that ICF did in June 2020, and we asked people if they believe that the travel industry should put more focus on sustainability in the future. And the second question was, will you consider choosing a more sustainable destination or airline over others in the future? And if you see here, over 80% of the people answered yes, which is, I mean, if you are willing to pay more, if that experience or if that trip is sustainable, that really means a lot. It's not only words. Here, people are looking for action. And the third one is related to all this we have discussed until now, because these travelers really are looking to leave a positive impact in the destination they visit. And this happens throughout all the generations we see here. And it's very important, and it's something we need to take into consideration when we do product development. And then there is the cultural distinctiveness. We have been talking for many years about the need to have a product that is authentic, but you see sometimes we don't really we're not really successful in delivering that value proposition. Why? Because when you're dealing with so many people to deliver a single product, and you're talking to fishers, farmers, artisans, artists, and you have to design a comprehensive tourism experience with all of them, you need a strong business model behind. You need a governance model that is related to public-private collaboration, and that's easy to say in theory, but very difficult to do in practice. But it can be done, and we will see how later on. And then technology. If we have seen the rise of technology throughout the pandemic, we have seen that in hotels when you need to open the door of the room and it was done through technology. Everything we pay nowadays is with the mobile phone. But then again, there's a paradigm here because we have technology, but we need also human touch. We have so much information that because of this, we have an opportunity now for some traditional stakeholders such as travel planners and specialized travel agents, because people need this personalized service and they need to really feel that what is being delivered to them is something that really targets their needs. So then again, for a moment in history we thought the travel agents would disappear. Now they have a true opportunity again if they specialize. So this is good news for the industry. And then we have a trend that has been growing a lot and will continue to grow, which is related to well-being. But well-being not only in the physical aspect of it, but also physically and mentally, and that has expanded also with the pandemic. And people now are willing to pay more to have these experiences related to feeling well and in all its components. And what does this mean? I mean, we have all these trends, but these trends have a clear impact on the governance model. How are we going to manage all this? Because, you know, it's not the traditional product we're going to deliver now. It's a lot more sophisticated, and nobody can do it alone. So we need to have, within the private sector, for instance, we have to have a new model, which is a mixture of collaboration and competition, because they need to work together to deliver those products. In terms of public-private partnership, before the conception people had, it was like the government was here and the private sector was here, and that you needed to follow the guidelines that were coming from above. But now this is changing somehow, and it's like this. And both the public sector and the private sector needs to work hand in hand to make sure that they are doing the right thing in a comprehensive way. We will see some examples later on too. And then we have a third component that is quite new. We have been talking about B2B communication and B2C communication, but now we have G2G, government to government. Why? Because now people are willing to visit places that sometimes are not in the same trip, but that they are not in the same country. And people don't really want to know anything about political borders. They know they want to visit, I don't know, East Asia or some parts of South America, and they want to have a seamless trip. I'm going to mention an example. Last week I was in Colombia, and I moderated a panel in the ALTA conference, which is a very important aviation conference. In the panel, we had three ministers, the Minister of Colombia, the Minister of Ecuador, and the Minister of Brazil. And they agreed there that they wanted to come up to design a new tourism product that would showcase the region from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And they are going to do that together, so that when you visit the region, it can be through a thematic line, through a narrative, a storytelling such as coffee or cacao, but you're not going to notice if you're in one country or another, because people don't really care. And that's going to come along with a new connectivity strategy, international for the long haul, but also intra-regional, because you need to connect these different places within the continent. And I thought that was very innovative, and it's a reference internationally. But we have also another example that I will mention right away. So what are the conclusions here? The conclusions is that everybody has to think differently, and we all must assume new roles. This has shaped everything we knew until now. it brings a lot of opportunities, but we need to be ready for them. The first one is that companies must add this destination management vision to their everyday activities. Why? Because you cannot only look at your business now. You have to look at the whole ecosystem from above and see how that's related, because you need to cooperate with others. So you need to think like traditional tour operators used to think before. And that's also quite new. Then, on the other hand, we have the destination management organizations that must dedicate as much effort to product development as they did to marketing before. Because if you don't control your product, you're lost. You're going to be communicating, but you're going to be communicating something that probably is not tailored to the needs, the growing needs, the emerging needs of the new consumers. And then the companies, when they get together, when they have got together traditionally in the past, it was to do lobbying. That was the main activity, or to share the experiences. But nowadays, they have to get together to go beyond that. They have to do joint commercialization. Because if not, a small company here, if they want to reach the long haul and do communication, it's going to be too expensive. They need to get together to do this joint commercialization. And then finally, the governments must facilitate what nobody else can do, which is strategic in both cases. One is air connectivity, and the second one is tourism intelligence. And this has to be provided in the best possible way. Then, what needs to be implemented if we think of what we have been discussing until now? Well, first, the product needs to change. If we have been saying that these travelers need a different kind of product that is more conscious and it causes a positive transformation in the places they visit, then you need to design it, and you need to do that with a large number of stakeholders that in many cases they have never done anything in tourism, because we want to include here this cultural distinctiveness we were talking about before. Then you have everything you do has to be sustainable, really, fully, deeply, for real, not only words. So you have to demonstrate that a tourist, and you have to place the tourist at the center. If this person visits the destination, he will be able to contribute somehow to something that is going to happen in there. And you have to be able to choose those projects in which the tourist is going to be involved. Then we need a different approach to targets and inbound markets via marketing and well-thought air connectivity. And then airlines also have a new opportunity here, because since there's these decreases in business travel, they have to think also in terms of leisure. And not always they have done so. And there are many opportunities there for them in terms of cross-selling and upselling. And then, of course, not to forget branding, content, and reputation. That has also to be dealt in a different way. How do we do that? It's complicated. I think the key is this slide. This needs to have a holistic, integrated approach. Normally, when you do destination management, you tackle any of these components at some point. But this has to be thought of from the very beginning as an integrated strategy. And you have to have the different teams, these very specialized people working in every area, thinking about this from the beginning. So, of course, you will have here the assessment, you will define the specialization strategy, then you will choose your inbound target markets and design the product to meet the needs of those inbound markets. You will make sure you have a product innovation system to keep on innovating all along. You will come with the governance model, the shared value project to demonstrate sustainability in practice, and then all the rest, marketing, tourism marketing, airline marketing, and then the management evaluation, the statistics and metrics, and the capacity building. But if you have the people working in different groups, or you have different people working and you do your own, the project management, you're going to lose a very precious component here. It's when these people think together, the result is going to be much better than if they do this separately. So the key for success for destination management nowadays is to think about this in an integrated way. I'm going to mention an example of an island that has many similarities with Jeju Island, which is in the Canary Islands, which is Lanzarote. This is the place where we have implemented this 12-step methodology, this integrated approach recently, all the steps of it. We were hired by them to reposition the island in the high-value traveler, and the goal was to get a better revenue yield per visitor so that we had less people but who were spending more, and that we had this mentality to be more sustainable and so on. So we had, this is the original part of it, 120 companies participating in the project. So it's a public-private collaboration model, and 120 companies, big and small, got fully involved in the project. We had in here, we worked for both the public sector and the private sector. The public sector is the island's destination management organization, and the private sector is represented by an association they have created following our advice to do the commercialization jointly together, not only for Lanzarote, but also with other destinations that are nearby. Because if Lanzarote wants to position itself alone for a long-haul market, it's not going to have any opportunity. People want to visit various destinations in the same trip. So they're going to be working with the north of Morocco, the south of Spain, the south of Portugal, and other islands that are Portuguese that are in the Atlantic Ocean. So you will have, in the same trip, you will visit 2 continents, 3 countries in which they speak 4 languages, and you have really huge cultural differences. So it's going to be a very exciting trip. But then we are also doing something for the private sector here that has a large impact in the local community. On one hand, they are coming up with the projects in which they are going to get the tourist involved to cause this positive transformation when he or she visits the destination. Second, they are designing, with our help, the Lanzarote in art collection, because that's going to be the positioning of the island, in art, because it's an artistic island. And we're working with a large number, you see some of them here, of artists and artisans to come up with products that are produced locally and that are going to have an impact for them, obviously, but also through this, we are going to be preserving traditions that are being lost. So as you see here, there's a component of social sustainability because we're preserving the heritage. And finally, this association they have created that I mentioned before. We have also done work for other islands, such as Malta. And in here, it was very interesting because it was the airport that took the lead. They wanted to understand how much they could grow sustainably. And they need to understand that in terms of tourism. And understand also if the tourism model they have in place is the right one or not. We also work for a place near here in Japan, in Hokkaido. We did so when they were privatizing the 7 airports in Hokkaido. We worked for Tokyo Corporation that at the end won the tender. And this was very visionary because the government there asked the airports to provide also a tourism strategy, which is quite unusual. Normally, they ask for, how to manage the airport properly, how to increase their connectivity, but they never ask the airports to have a tourism strategy and to work together with the destination management organizations in the islands. They did that. We thought it was brilliant, and we came up with this approach through which they had a holistic governance model, public-private, to deal with tourism in Hokkaido. And of course, this also had a very positive impact because it was the only manner to make some services sustainable for the locals in the north part or the east part, where otherwise the train or the airline to maintain the air connectivity would be very expensive. So tourism was used as a tool to improve the life of the locals, and that's also very inspiring. And then I want to finish with 2 slides in which we forecast the recovery trends more or less. So the recovery following our experts is going to happen faster than we thought in 2020. They calculate now 3 years and 10 months from the beginning. And if you see, I think after North America, the region of Asia Pacific is the one that is going to recover in average faster than the rest. If you mix the domestic and international travel. So there are a lot of good news, even though the crisis has been so hard and so challenging for everybody, and nobody had ever thought that this could happen in modern times. But with crisis, you always have opportunities, many opportunities, as we have seen. So those destinations that really work with this new model of collaboration, that are able to provide through it the right experiences and products for these emerging trends we saw before, that put together a strong governance model to make this happen, will have a huge opportunity. And this is what we need to get ready for. And I really hope that Jeju Island, our host here today, and all the other destinations that are part of ITOP really have tackled these opportunities, deal with them, build upon them, and with this, they really build the most prosperous future, and of course, putting tourism at the center as a tool for positive transformation. Thank you so much for your attention.
고맙습니다. 큰 박수.
Thank you. Another big round of applause to Yolanda PERDOMO. It was a great opportunity to learn some best practices of what we can learn for the post-COVID era. We're going to have a 10-minute break, and in the meantime, we would like to invite you to the virtual tour to Bali, Indonesia, and Sri Lanka.
Southern province of Sri Lanka, with a total land area of 5,344 square kilometers, is located on the southern border of the country. It consists of 3 administrative districts, namely Galle, Matara, and Hambantota. It is home for 2.5 million people, a population which is 13% of the total population of the island. Southern province lies perfectly bordering the coastal belt of the Indian Ocean. The terrestrial significance of Southern province is that the province is enriched with almost all varieties of environment and climatic conditions other than desert and polar ecological features. OBEIT, the Inter-Islands Tourism Policy Forum, is a group of island states. Southern province of Sri Lanka, not being an island state, by choice has been enlisted as a member of the forum owing to the diverse aspects of its thriving tourism industry, which has fashioned high-end religious, economic, and cultural standards. The ongoing global pandemic of coronavirus disease since 2019 caused severe adverse impacts on southern province also. Nevertheless, providing emergency treatment for the identified patients during the 4 waves of pandemic, we could control the spread of the disease and thereby restore the affected industries, mainly including the tourism trade. Working on 3 main objectives, we could successfully face the challenge and bring back normalcy into the public life of the province. The number of COVID deaths in the southern province has decreased to 1,679 by 20th November 2021. So far, 62% of the population has been vaccinated against COVID-19. Following strictly controlled disciplinary strategies, we have been able to ensure the safety of the tourists who travel to various destinations of the region. Amidst the pandemic situation, tourist arrivals into the province has been dropped by a sizable aggregate. It was not a manageable condition and we gripped fresh strengths out of the situation. Moreover, we could transform our tourism destinations into more appealing stations by providing more facilities at such places. However, we are marching ahead in achieving our targets even in this gloomy period by formulating and implementing new strategies and methodologies. We wish to pronounce with determination that we are executing our plan of action to remodel our entire province into a major tourism fascination of the island, rather than improving as separate localities. Year 2022 would be a period of paramount importance for us, and we would like to assert with optimal expectations that we would forge ahead with enhanced determination and courage.
Forget the future, forget the past. We're taking over, yeah, we're lying in the street, staring at the stars. Everything we need is everything we are. We don't need to sleep, we don't need to care. Everything is free, and I know I can feel it in the air tonight. Break down these walls, they can't keep us need to sleep, we don't need to care. Everything is free, and I know I can feel it in the air. Tonight, tonight, we can't be stopped. We won't stop coming alive. Tonight, break down these walls that can't keep us inside.
네, 이제 곧 첫 번째
Soon we're going to start session 1. Those who are on site, please be seated, and we would like to invite the moderator and speakers and panel discussants on the podium. We will soon begin the session 1. Moderators and speakers and panel discussants, please be seated on the podium. Thank you.
네, 그러면 지금부터
Let us begin the first session of the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar. The session's topic is called Safe Tourism in the With-COVID Era by Using Big Data. Vice President Kyu-Hwan of the Tourism Sciences Society of Korea will be the moderator. Now let me hand over my microphone to the moderator. Good afternoon. Nice to meet you. My name is Kyu-Hwan. I'm a professor at Donga University. As you see the schedule, session 1 has 2 speakers, followed by 4 panel discussants. We have 80 minutes for this session, so we will have 2 presentations, speaking from 4 panel discussants, and it's a little bit tight. So let's introduce session 1 right away before we start. The topic of session 1 is called Safe tourism in the with COVID era by using big data. So as I mentioned, we have two speakers. The first speaker is Pulkit Lamba, Industrial Manager of APAC Travel, Google. Digital marketing related to traveling and the risk management is his expertise. His title today is Digitizing Travel with Google. Thank you in advance. The other speaker is from Kyung-hee University, Professor Park Sang-won. He is usually researching in AI, big data marketing. His topic today is big data in smart tourism, focusing on island tourism. And after these two presentations, I will invite the panel discussants. We have 4 panel discussants. On your right side, the far right, we have General Manager Kwon-Soo of a Korea Culture Information Service Agency and Director Hyung-Seok of Future Strategy of Jeju Province. Next, General Manager Kim Young-mi of Tourism Big Data Department of Korea Tourism Organization. And last but not least, the General Manager Kim Young-mi of Tourism Big Data Department. And we will also give 10 minutes each for panel discussants. So 2 presentations, 10 minutes speaking from 4 discussants. And if we have some more time allowed, we would like to invite the floor to give more questions to presenters. Let us begin the first session. Let's right away move on to the next presentation by Professor Park Sang-won. Professor Park is with us on the podium, so I believe he can start right away.
Hello everyone, my name is Sang-won Park. I'm a professor at the Kyung University. So I'm very pleased to have this chance to share my thoughts about my thought and idea about big data in smart tourism. Indeed, I'm talking about island tourism. So we know that the island have some certain characteristics. Like the Jeju Island, for example, you have some distance from such a central part of the land, which is isolated. And then when you think about the location of Jeju Island, there's some sort of peripheral, somehow surrounding over the key land, which is a peripherality. And then due to some isolations, the island are subject to the change of environment or change of political, social, economic concerns. So as a result, it's quite important to think about how we can encourage the community to be involved in the island tourism development and then finding the factors of land development in such a limited spatial capacity. So to address these such the missions objectives, I would like to introduce some concept. So I'm not just sharing how big data can be applied in the island tourism, but I really want to propose some new concept, which is design. Design is quite important in a space or destination planning too. So can you look at this as a book entitled Vacation Escape? Actually, this book has been written about 1980s. Even 1980, they have proposed the idea or they proposed the role of design in making landscape. So rather than using the planning term, Dr. Gunn, who is the author of this book, actually highlighted the place design to emphasize the artistic and the creative manipulation of a structure, the landscape in the better purpose of tourism. So in order to achieve this goal, Dr. Gunn, who is the author of this book, suggested that we have to be able to understand the holistic travel experiences as well as adopting advanced analytics to comprehend towards the dynamic needs and wants. So thanks to the connected technology, or the destination marketers, or like academics, we can obtain very comprehensive and sophisticated data from mobile technology or social media or transaction data from credit card or search engine website like Google, who have presented before. From this data, what we can understand it, we can identify much more inclusive and a very sophisticated manner of travel mobility and travel behaviors. So what I really want to highlight that we have to integrate concept of place design with the big data. So what is design? Design is not just a single artifact of creating or developing the product, but design is a process. Design is a way of thinking. So design thinking provides such a basic process deriving innovation or new ways for supporting the creation of an artifact, in other words, creation of customer values by enhancing user experiences. So this design concept, we have to think about the data. How the data or big data facilitate for us to achieve this design thinking. So as you look at the bottom, there are 3 different stages. This is what I want to argue that when we think about design thinking, we have to go through 3 elements to achieve the final goal. First of them, understanding generating idea of a place design. By understanding the travel patterns of the current travelers. So once you understand the idea of the place design, then we have to think about the function of the design. Everyone have this mobile phone, right? Then the mobile phone maker, they're gonna think about that. What's the function of this mobile phone? Somehow, they can phone call. They can call the phone, or they search for information in the application. They have to be portable. They have to hold it. So they make it a square shape, and they have this size of it. We can apply this idea into destination design. In the Jeju Island, people visit a number of different places. What's the role of every single region at the Jeju Island or island tourism? And then we can find out the functions of the specific place in the Jeju. As a result, we can implement the design by developing recommended system for island tourism. So from now on, this one, so we can integrate design thinking and the big data in smart tourism. So from now on, I'm gonna present a number of different results focusing on Jeju Island based upon big data analytics. So first of them, we actually obtained massive navigation data. You know that most of people who visit Jeju Island, they hire a car. They rent a car to travel around it, as opposed to using public transportation system. In navigation data, they have important 3 key information. First of them, spatial information. We know where they visited. And then they have the POI data. We know what they have done, like travel activities information there. And then we have temporal information. We know that when they visit the places. Based upon those 3 information, how we try that? So then, we analyzed about over 50 million travel flow data. They use a navigation, and when they drive their car, they want to find the travel directions. Then we obtained those data in the Jeju Island indeed. Now we applied the advanced spatial big data analytics as a result. We uncovered key travel flow, key patterns among 15 million travel flow. That is the result. So at the end, we found out 8 hub places in Jeju Island. Not only those 8 hub places in Jeju, but also we found out their movement patterns among those different hub places. As you can see, some of the hot places, over 70%, around 70% of people only traveling within the hot places rather than moving out of hot places. Does this pattern same to all the 8 hot places? Not necessarily. In different places showing that, different hot places showing that, about 50% of people, they're traveling within the hot places. Other half of them, they're going out of the places. So as a result, we found the hot places, how they move around. And then you can see some icon there. Very interesting thing is in Jeju, when travelers visit one of those 8 hot places, they have specific reason to visit there. Some hot places, they visit there for food. Some people visit some other hot places for airport, or some of the travel attractions, or some finding lodging. So this such a, based upon those 3 insights, we were able to understand what's the current travel mobility patterns, which achieve first part of design thinking. And the second, not only to understand the travel movement patterns, but also we try to find out some functions of the region in Jeju Island. Here is a result of the 600 meter by 600 meter. There's some grid zone showing different color. We used advanced machine learning algorithm to find out what's the different functions in a very small grid in Jeju Island. As I told you before, travelers have a different reason, different motivation to visit very single micro level of regions at the Jeju Island. So based upon that machine learning analytics, we found out that there are 4 key functions. Like the audience here, individual person, you have your own personality. Same thing, at the destination, we found out there are micro-level personality type according to different places in Jeju Island. So we found the 4, and you can find out different, the color code between that. So first one, multifunctional places. When people visit the multifunctional places, they want to achieve a number of different purposes. Whereas lodging, that area particularly for accommodations or staying in, and the restaurant as well as attractions. So like here, we were able to obtain what's the current movement patterns at the Jeju Island, as well as we found the regional functions. Now what's the next one? We are supposed to implement a design, but we know that COVID-19 happened. So everything was stopped. So we actually a little bit changed our direction to find out what's the impact of COVID-19 on Jeju tourism. In general, we find out what's the impact on human mobility in general and travel mobility in particular. So here's the result. So a little bit complicated, and let me clarify that. We got the data from bus card usage data. There are 2 green bars. First green bar showing first wave of COVID-19. Second green bar showing second wave of COVID-19. We tried another machine learning model, find out that when you look at the like a blue bar here, just before first wave of COVID-19, which is the first green bar, you see that the Jeju residents, their usage of a bus is quite constant. There's no big changes. But right after first wave of COVID-19, all the pattern have been changing. First one, what does it show that? No matter what COVID-19, still the usage of buses, same. But that really changed before and after COVID-19. Group 2, they are very sensitive to the COVID-19. Once the COVID-19 happened, can you see that graph? The drop by the blue color, drop immediately. People do not use the bus anymore. Third group, they're quite adjust to the change of environment. For example, once the first wave happened, like the first green bar, a little bit slow down. The usage decreases. But as time goes, increase again. People are familiar to the COVID-19 situation. They adjust the COVID-19 situation. And then once the second wave have emerged, they started it, the drop is not significant as much as the first wave, which means that people in the third group, they are already adjust to the coronavirus or pandemic, the situation. The fourth one is once their first wave, they don't use the bus anymore. As time goes, they use it again, increase it. Second wave happened, they don't use it anymore, drop again significantly. So based upon that, based on bus car data, so we will identify how human mobility has been changed by COVID-19. And then also we found out how COVID-19 affects travel mobility. In here, we tried such a very massive, also inclusive of big data analytics. And in summary, there are a lot of research here. In summary, we found out that we look at the change of COVID-19, how does it affect the travel demand in Jeju Island. What's mean by change of COVID-19? Number of new cases, the new infected cases, national level, Jeju level. Which factor is the most important? We found out that travelers coming into Jeju Island, they are much more sensitive to number of new cases in Jeju rather than national new cases. And then when is affected? In our big data, we found that it does not affect immediately. It takes 2 weeks. So let's say if a new case happened today, when this COVID-19 affected, next 2 weeks, those travelers who coming into Jeju Island in 2 weeks, which activity most affected? Can you see over there? Restaurants, hugely affected by that. And then followed by attractions, and then lodging and accommodation. The least impacted travel activity is a cultural facility. So now, the last one is, I can finish in the two slides. So once we understand what's the impact of COVID-19 on the travel behavior, and then we try to implement our design by developing recommendation system. We know that the post-COVID-19 travel behavior will be more individual. Their motivation much more sophisticated by concerning social distancing and the hygiene. So we have to think about crowd management. So last slide here is that now with the JTO and then our research team, all of the things that we already have been done with the JTO R&D research team together, and then now we are developing recommendation system by staging model. We are already able to predict where travelers will visit, location prediction. Second, we are able to predict which activity travelers are seeking for at the places we recommended. Third, we already predict which food they want to have at the places. Like based upon this switch model, we are about to introduce or launch the recommendation system, hopefully in the next year. So as a result, what I want to propose is that by integrating design thinking with the big data, we can accomplish smart tourism design. Thank you very much.
예, 우리
Thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Park. Now we are going to move on to the panel discussion session. After listening to the comments provided by panel discussants, we will take questions. So we will listen the comments first by Mr. Lee Kwon-Soo, General Manager of KCISA. There were presentations on the data and the Google tools. And please freely provide your comments on the two presentations.
Good afternoon. I am working on big data platform At the Korea Culture Information Service Agency, my name is Kwon-Soo. Thank you for the presentation, and that reminds me of 3 keywords: smart tourism, safe tourism, and sustainable tourism. This session is called Big Data-Based Safe Tourism with COVID era. We do need these to change our trend of tourism in the era of with COVID. So in the course of our project at my agency, we keep an eye on how tourists' patterns have changed through social media. And as you are well aware, camping with cars, living in an alien place for a month, and these trends are often observed through social media. Another thing I can think of is that we can use private data to see the accommodation rate, especially the cancellation rate of accommodation. And every time we have a wave of COVID-19, big wave of COVID-19, cancellation rate rises. So we are now living in the era to talk about anything based on data. And to secure safe and sustainable tourism, what should we do? For that question, I would like to add a few thoughts. First, we are somehow forced to enter COVID in the era of with COVID. And when I came here from Seoul today, the plane was almost full. People want to come to Jeju because it gives them some feeling of traveling by air. But then we need some disinfection measures which Jeju is working on, and I also confirm that such effort. And all the data we collected in the course should be utilized in the next stage. Nobody guarantees a second COVID wouldn't happen in the future, so various experience and data from this current COVID-19 pandemic should be utilized wisely to respond to any possible pandemic after COVID-19. And that's how we can support tourists, by utilizing data. For sustainable tourism, as a keynote speaker mentioned, innovative tourism is required. Tourism often changes, especially after COVID-19. Well, tourism needs change anyways, but I heard about personalization and individualization, and these should be keywords to develop some tourist products, and I'm not sure if it's actually happening. There are lots of contents, and these could be used for sustainable tourism, but is it really happening? Well, people have different desires and their patterns change. We have a lot of abundant natural resources, and we can also develop some local customized tourism products, and these are the efforts we should make to make Jeju as a sustainable tourism destination. So for marketing, you want to draw some people's attention, and there we use certain contents, and we also have to respond to changes of people's interests. For example, Gangneung is now very popular with the concept of camping and camping with their vehicles. So to secure sustainable tourism, you have to keep up the people's desire. Last but not least, we are talking about tourism based on big data. Well, big data means we have massive data, and these various types of data, of course, need to be analyzed and reviewed and shared among anyone, a lot of people, but people have different interests. So maybe public organizations should collect data that can be used by private sectors to create new industries and new products, services. So smart tourism, safe tourism, and sustainable tourism. Oh, I should add one, as Professor Park mentioned. In smart tourism, recommendation services require a lot of data, because to recommend something, we need to review millions of pieces of data so that we can meet tourists' demands regarding where they want to go, what they want to do. So my point here is that to converge and merge all different types of data from all different stakeholders. And that wraps up my opinions. Thank you.
예.
Thank you very much for your comments. So I'll try to summarize the comments provided by each panel discussants right after each discussants complete their comment. So he talked about the big data in sustainable tourism. He talked about the COVID-19 related big data, which should be utilized for a future pandemic that may arise in the future. So the big data should be utilized to help us respond to future pandemics. Sustainable tourism, innovative and transformational tourism were other ideas he highlighted. And the patterns and tastes and needs of consumers are changing in really quickly, so we should be able to meet those evolving needs. Of course, local governments are doing their destination marketing, but all those efforts should tailor to the evolving needs of travelers and tourists. Big data should be used, which is not relatively easy in the private sector. The public sector should lead the realization of big data, which is smart tourism. And he made 3 proposals with relation to smart tourism. Now I'd like to turn to Mr. Hyung-Seok, Director General of Future Strategies Bureau from Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. Hello everyone, I'm Hyung-Seok from Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. The Future Strategies Bureau is responsible for the future strategies of the island. Big data, sensors, and other technologies are being reviewed. For smart tourism, we've been working on this idea that data and science and technology should be merged with the service layer. We are collaborating with the Jeju Tourism Organization to develop various policies and services. Listening to the keynote speaker and the 2 presentations of the session, of course, Google is utilizing its data collected from its platform and also developed various tools for the tourism sector. And Professor Park talked about how we design data and data collection and how we are going to use the data for the tourism sector. Smart tourism is about how we are going to design our tourism strategies utilizing big data. In Jeju, we have a number of data collecting systems, which will increase in number. To give an example, you have access to free Wi-Fi that covers the entire island. and we collect Wi-Fi data. Of course, it is to assist the Jeju residents and visitors to freely use the internet, but utilizing analyzing data, we can collect information or data on where people are going, where people are from. We have bus data. It has high precision location GNSS data. We have GPS errors of tens of meters, but this high precision data can provide data with error rate of 10 centimeters. If you look at the data, you have access to real-time information data that's available for you if you want to take a ride. And how the information is provided to tourists and how it should be linked with the bus information that the visitor is going to take. And we also use the credit card data, and we now understand people are coming from where and where they visit and what kind of things that they purchase. Every year, these things are things that we are doing using big data. We are providing various public data. Of course, it could be used in the tourism sector, but it's also used for urban planning and agriculture planning. You have to understand that we have to understand what kind of data we want to collect and analyze for what purpose. We have POI location data, and we may have different types of data that we collect from credit card usage of the local residents. You have to think about the method of collecting data. Then it is related to where we install the sensors, and we have to design all the project, and it involves different stakeholders. We have to have as many points as possible to collect data to generate purpose-driven big data. That's the most important thing in what we do. Public sector is different. We have the concept of digital SOC in our mindset. We have to have data collection and utilization system. And the private sector should come up with services or the business models where they use and monetize the public data. The JTO data analytic tools are used by private sector companies, for example, restaurants, souvenir shops, and destinations, and they can have better understanding on the type of people that are visiting Jeju, and they can also understand the changing tourism paradigm. After COVID-19 is over, we should be able to improve our business activities by utilizing big data for the policy makers. They have to understand that the trends are changing fast and policy should also change quickly. We have to make sure that we do not continue the wrong policies that we have established before, and we need to think about how we can better utilize big data so that we can better promote the tourism industry and beyond. We have a different type of data that we have in Jeju, which will be useful post-COVID-19 pandemic. We have what's called the safety code, which is to ensure safe traveling in Jeju. This is part of our quarantine measures. We do not rely on the central government for track and trace of the confirmed cases. We do not have to make a request to the central government to understand where the confirmed cases are. Rather, we have our own quarantine data. By using this, our own data system for check and trace, there are crime-prone zones. And we can use the crime-prone zone data, and maybe it could be integrated with the track and trace data to strengthen our quarantine measures so that it will be useful to implement and enforce more stringent quarantine measures when needs arise. So the data are connected and integrated, and then it could be also used to further elaborate and sophisticate our quarantine measures. And maybe, at least in terms of technology, with the close cooperation with the Tourism Bureau of Jeju's special self-governing province, we'll be able to lead the smart tourism sector in Korea and beyond.
Thank you, Director Yoon. Well, he's from local government, so unlike the central government, it was surprising to hear that Jeju provincial government is strongly using and strongly recommending to use big data. Well, he mentioned some services, but by analyzing data, we are able to find some behavior patterns and some card usage, and we are able to see which areas are commercially thriving based on this card data. Well, it's a part of a public's role, but I believe it is also important to localize such effort in order to provide customized information to the locals. And somehow this data analysis can be reflected back to Jeju's policies. And as I heard Director Yoon's comment, I believe that he's well aware of the importance of big data. And now I would like to invite General Manager Kim Young-mi. My name is Kim Young-mi, General Manager of a Tourism Big Data Department of a Korea Tourism Organization. I think we are all on the same page, and today I would like to introduce our recent research to review the trend in Korea and overseas and what we do at the Korea Tourism Organization. We've analyzed the telecommunications and cards and any social media big data, and this is not different from what you imagine. And people often prefer local areas and more remote areas with more natural environments, and centered around some major cities in the remote area. And as mentioned, camping with vehicles are thriving, and workation and staycation is also a trend now. That means people stay in a tourist area more than a few weeks. And we also did some research with 15,000 people, and we hope to see more overseas trip coming up. And the global tourists want to come to Korea, which is about 75%, and they want to travel more overseas. But however, we need a prerequisite conditions. That means a safe tourism. And a lot of people want to travel, but they don't want to travel unless it's safe. That was like 56.6% of the respondents. And internationally, Seoul, Busan, Jeju are the only cities that are recognized by foreign tourists, and it's like over 20% of foreign tourists recognize these cities and they want to come to visit. So safe and sustainable tourism is our future goal, then one trend I want to mention is that the digital tourism is just around the corner, and we are actually experiencing virtual tourism. Smart parcel services and some small-sized transportation services is something that tourists are satisfied with, and some dissatisfactory factor, including some services that causes some dissatisfaction, that includes some tourism information based on big data and a contactless reservation. So after COVID-19 or with COVID era, do we have to respond to the tourists in the same way that we used to do? I don't think so. I think the allocation of demands and demand distribution is important. For example, within Jeju, you've seen that there are only 8 clusters have more tourists. So by month, maybe like in summer it's packed, but it's not really busy in winter, or sometimes in the morning they have more tourists in different areas. And so to meet tourists' needs and to realize sustainable tourism, big data plays a big role here again. From 2019 and until 2021, we have launched the big data platform by using telecommunications and the credit card information to review the flow of the tourists' behaviors and patterns. And in December, we are about to open that platform to the public and to provide the customized services. We are working on the dashboard for that platform. And we started this platform project, and ESG and digital transformation were the buzzwords for us when we started this platform project. So just beyond using big data, all activities by my organization needs to be transferred into digital transformation activities, and we can also accumulate and analyze data to provide the customized services to tourists, and that could help our policies of tourism marketing. And we've just concluded a mid to long-term plan at my organization. And what is really encouraging to me is that we are living in hyper-connected era. And I believe and realize that I'm not the only one, and we have more colleagues who have the same thoughts and concerns. And for 2 years between 2018 and 2019, we did have some seminar about international tourism, and we had to stop because of COVID, but hopefully next year, early next year, we should be able to resume our seminar to collect more information like this seminar. And as mentioned, data itself doesn't have very big meaning. How we use this data and how we can use this data for some benefits that we can provide to public is crucial. That is why my organization works on some projects, as I mentioned. Everyone is jealous of Jeju because Jeju is actively working on this big data projects with great expertise and enthusiasm. And for digital transformation of Korean tourism organization, we are working on some projects, and I'm leading the projects. And by establishing Data Alliance, we hope to have a genuine alliance for sustainable tourism around the globe. And I urge you some support and interest. And when we contact you next time, hopefully we can see you again in other seminars and conferences. Thank you.
So General Manager Kim, I keep hearing the same words. So domestic travel will increase, and there are areas where you have more tourists, and the places that people have already visited will be popular, and more individualized or family-oriented type of travel or accommodation will be popular. Instead of visiting restaurants, since you have a new trend where people enjoy a lot of camping, there will be a lot of people enjoy cooking on campsite. And when it comes to inbound tourist, safety will be the most important aspect. Sanitation and safety should be guaranteed. Only then we will be able to receive increasing number of inbound guests. Seoul, Busan, Jeju are still very much popular. Tourism 72% and air 80%, and sustainable or DIY, dream yourself. People make reservations for flights and accommodations, and the rest of the things that they want to do are planned by the individual travelers. So these are the things that we now have as our understanding after analyzing big data on tourism. Last but not least, I would like to invite Kim Nuri, Senior Officer of Regional Department for Asia and the Pacific from UNWTO. Hello everyone, I'm Kim Nuri from UNWTO. Because of the protracted COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people are suffering from many difficulties, and I'm very honored to be invited for this important forum. We are seeing slow recovery in the global economy and the tourism sector as well. However, the recovery is not full yet. UNWTO World Tourism Barometer was published last month, and this year, compared to 2019, the international tourism arrivals went down by 80%. This is going back to 1990, and this symbolizes the huge impact COVID-19 have had. North America was down 68%, and Latin America went down by 76%. APAC, it went down by 95%. So we are going through an unprecedented crisis in the tourism sector. To ensure a safe recovery, we have to innovate ourselves. We are now having discussions about the utilization of big data, and I think it is also important for the tourism sector and the recovery of tourism worldwide. Big data is not a new technology. We already had big data technology, and utilization of big data and the importance of smart tourism was already well understood even before COVID-19 because of the fourth industrial revolution. We believe that big data will be an important factor for our competitiveness in the global tourism competition. When we have a lot of uncertainties, we have to make decisions based on data and information. As was mentioned by other speakers, with COVID-19, we are seeing a lot of changes in the traveling patterns, and countries are changing, adjusting their travel restrictions. When things are changing quickly, we have to understand what's happening on a real-time basis, and big data can be used to predict the future. We need to have quality data, and that's critical. And it is not possible for one agency to establish a big data system. It is critical that many different stakeholders collaborate. It was mentioned by Professor Park, credit card data, telecommunication data, and GPS data, and other private sector data, as well as government statistics and open data can be integrated. Through this effort, we can understand the number of visitors and their consumption patterns, and we can also understand the popular destinations and the visitors by gender and age, as well as their spending trends or spending patterns by age and by gender. And this could be used for private sector marketing. It could be also used to promote and further develop tourism products. For DMOs and local governments, it could be also used for quarantine measures and safety guidelines. We can analyze the number of visitors per destination and per region, and the most optimal quarantine and safety check intervals can be adjusted. At the same time, as was mentioned by the representative from tourism organization, we can use the data to distribute the tourism demand and visitors. If we can distribute the visitors, we can help contain the virus. At the same time, we can also provide benefit for the local areas where they used to be marginalized from the tourism sector. For visitors, they can be guided to their favorite places or the places that they may like, and can visit places where there are not a lot of visitors visiting at the same time. We need close cooperation and communication between different stakeholders. There are industry partners and tourism organizations that need to work together. We need to provide analytic services, and close communication and cooperation should be ensured. From UNWTO, it's an international organization in charge of tourism under the UN. We provide information on tourism trends on our website. If you visit our website, there is a destination tracker, and we work with different governments and number of visitors for 220 countries, and COVID-19 related policies can be viewed. We also work with IATA and Expedia and other multinational companies. And we provide information on accommodation reservation, flight reservation, seat capacity in international domestic air routes, and travel bookings. We also help our member countries in their capacity building. We provide academies and training sessions, and we also hosted and organized a webinar with Google. Korea is oftentimes referred as an exemplary case. The Jeju Province Big Data Tourism Service Platform and the Destination Congestion Analysis Service are often cited as a good example. For the island level or the local government level, we'd like to propose that capacity building on big data should be provided. Maybe the most benefits can be obtained by startups and SMEs. They should obtain digital techniques, and I think it will be helpful to create a more sustainable tourism ecosystem. Tourism is not just an industry or a sector. It helps people to widen their horizon and make their life more enriched. So I'd like to highlight before I close that there should be universal travel where anyone can access in a safe manner. Madrid, Spain is a place that I lived shortly. Wherever you go in Madrid, you see a lot of disabled people enjoying their travel. Maybe big data can be used to promote tourism by the disabled. There may be destinations enjoyed more by disabled people. Maybe we can analyze the reason why these places are not popular among the disabled. And we have to make sure that we provide more opportunities for the disabled people to enjoy those spots. Talking about the tourism by the elderly, according to the UN, by 2050, more than 1/6 of the global population will be aged 65 or older. Aging is or will be a global problem, and a lot of countries are trying to overcome the issues or problems caused by aging. Based on a research conducted by EU, those in their 60s enjoy mountain climbing and swimming, and those in their 70s enjoy cruise and yachts. So probably the elderly may have different tastes and needs depending on their age group. So since we are seeing increasing travel demand by the elderly citizens, we have to come up with the customized policies and services based on the data and the insight that we obtain from. I think those will be really useful for expedite the tourism industry recovery. For the past 2 years, we struggled to fight the COVID-19 and we maintained our close cooperation and communication. Amid the ongoing COVID-19, I hope that our collaboration will continue so that we'll be able to ensure safe travel and quick recovery of the tourism industry.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. After COVID-19 in particular, she mentioned about some surge in tourism in Asia. Well, yes, we have to consider how to utilize big data, and it has been repeatedly said that it needs a multiple stakeholders effort to wisely utilize big data. And once big data is analyzed, it could be used by some private sectors and local governments, and you touch upon the process, and based on UN's recommendation, you also mentioned about some statistics and index that is helpful for academia. And I got to know the role of UNWTO. Korea's data is widely used. That's something that I learned from your comments. And you talked about the elderly, the children. Barrier-free is the term to describe these people in an ideal condition. And I believe that you suggested opportunities for them to fully enjoy their tourism. And that wraps up all comments from 4 discussants and 2 speakers. We have a little more time. I just want to wrap up what we discussed. Mr. Pulkit Lamba mentioned 3 things. Real-time travel analysis is needed, and Google is providing some digital-related functions, and it's ideal to understand these functions to wisely utilize. And digital satisfaction needs to be achieved. Real-time traveling tracking can be done by Google app, and we just saw the actual demonstration, and he mentioned that maybe it's an ideal to collect some information through this Google idea, and then through various promotional activities by Google, such as free booking function and free payment function are available for the public. And third, he mentioned that the people watch a lot of videos like on YouTube. Google Art and Culture is one program he mentioned, and he urged some active participation to try that out by local governments and some private sectors. And these are the ways that he suggested to help to draw more tourists. And Professor Park mentioned the 3 stages. And first, how we realize this idea as a system and how we can implement. And he mentioned about various research items that he experienced regarding COVID-19. The existing data analysis has been changed, as Professor Park mentioned, after the outbreak of COVID-19. And he mentioned about various useful data that can be utilized to fully equip Jeju with functions in tourism. We've used up almost 80 minutes by now. Maybe Pulkit Lamba, sorry, we missed him on Zoom, so we were not able to answer any questions if you have for him. Instead, I would like to wrap up our discussion. So as Mr. Lee mentioned, sorry, Ms. Kim mentioned, the fourth industrial revolution started and is happening, and COVID-19 or not, we are accelerating the time to stabilize the conditions of a genuine fourth industrial revolution. And our topic was smart tourism based on big data. And hopefully, by using big data, we should be able to meet more needs for tourists in the future, even after in the era of with COVID. And I would like to once again appreciate the 2 speakers and 4 panel discussants. And that wraps up session 1 of today's seminar. Thank you very much.
또 파악을
So it was a good opportunity for us to talk about the importance of big data for the recovery and for the advancement of the tourism industry. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the section number 2, we're going to have a short break. For those of you who are participating in the event on site, you can enjoy some coffee and some snacks. Please kindly note that the door is rather narrow, so you have to make sure that you don't get hurt yourself. And we're going to now introduce to you Hainan, China, with the video.
잠시 안내 말씀 드리겠습니다. 커피와 다과가 준비되어 있는 문은 보시는 쪽에서 좌측에 준비되어 있습니다. 정문 아니고 좌측으로 나가주시면 커피와 다과 준비되어 있으니까요. 휴식하시는 동안 함께 즐기시면 좋겠습니다. 고맙습니다. 네, 이제 곧 두 번째
We are going to begin session number 2 of today's program. I'd like to ask all the participants to kindly make their way into the hall and take your seats.
네, 그러면 지금부터
Let us begin session number 2. We are going to have discussions on how the ITOP member regions deal with COVID-19 pandemic. This session will be moderated by Mr. Seong-Hwa, Chairperson of Jeju Tourism Sciences Society. Hello everyone. I'm Seong-Hwa, Chairperson of Jeju Tourism Sciences Society. I am also a professor of Jeju University. The Jeju Tourism Sciences Society was established 20 years ago, and we do research into tourism-related policies. We're going to have discussions on how the ITOP member regions have dealt with or are still dealing with COVID-19 pandemic. We have four presenters and 3 panel discussants. We have some participants, especially from those from overseas, joining us online. Since we have 4 speakers for this session, I'm going to introduce the speakers as well as the panel discussants when their turn comes up. The first speaker is Mr. Young-keun, Director of Tourism Policy Division of Jeju Special Self-Governing Province. He's the one in charge of quarantine and economy of Jeju amid COVID-19 pandemic. So the floor is yours, Mr. Byun.
Good afternoon. My name is Young-keun, Executive Director of Tourism Policy Division of Jeju Province. It's my honor to be here to present you the first topic. From November 1st, we are entering with COVID era, and we started the first step. Nevertheless, it is yet far to reach the genuine recovery from COVID-19. And hopefully my presentation give you some insights to help you some ideas for after COVID or with COVID era. And hopefully we can further continue to discuss about island tourism in the future. UNWTO in 2021 published this report. 40% of increase happened in the tourism in 2021. Compared to 2019, still it's over 80% decrease. By country, there are some vaccination the vaccination status, and it is slowly recovering. And experts expect to have some increase in the second quarter and the third quarter of 2021. and they expected a recovery in a few years. And next, Jeju tourism trend. In 2020, Jeju first witnessed the confirmed patients, but in 2021, government level of quarantine measures more affected on tourists. The earlier 2020, between January and May, tourists to Jeju decreased about 30%, and it had some economic impact. And the damage was about 1 trillion Korean won. Next, analysis on consumption impact in Jeju. Starting from the first half of 2021, slowly recovering between 2020 and 2021, there is a number of tourists growing to visit Jeju, and 58.3% increase compared to that of the first half of 2020, and 31% compared to that of first half of 2019. The trend has changed from group tour to individuals, and some hidden places are becoming more popular that were not discovered before COVID-19. Next, COVID-19 responses in Jeju. In the big transition time after COVID, we have basic disinfection and quarantine directions has changed, and that established smart quarantine system based on speed and accuracy, and that requires a new way of thinking. First, to protect Jeju, from the beginning of outbreak of COVID, Jeju established a decent system that strictly protects personal information as well as privacy. To solve the problem of privacy and personal issues is the basic of the basic, and that's what Jeju government recognizes. And substantial tech plus concept improvement happened. Jeju has more and stricter measures to respond COVID-19. To solve problems of visitors, Jeju created an ID and QR code by users each time, and that way we were able to improve inconvenient visit record experience. In the past, Jeju had an issues of a manual log of visitors, and Jeju has a very special characteristics, and that is why we ended up providing this Jeju Safety Code. Jeju Safety Code is based on blockchain, and it prevents counterfeit and misuse of the information. Then how to issue Jeju Safety Code at shops? You can send guideline booklet. The government sent guideline booklet, and we were able to prevent additional confirmed patients. And you can see the introduction of a Jeju Safety Code. Based on blockchain, it is impossible to have a counterfeit and falsification by utilizing blockchain technologies. And this Jeju Safety Code separately saves the ID information and the visit information. on two different services and use the saved information by syncing with health civilian system to detect confirmed patients. All information is encoded, and after 10 weeks or 4 weeks, all this information is discarded. This one is the response process in case of finding confirmed cases. First, a confirmed case occurs, and second, check the visitor's ID. And third, confirm the route of the confirmed patient. Advantage of the system is self-driven digital ID platform. You can just refer to this information we provided. Next one is the implementation plan of real-time congestion level of analysis system for Jeju tourist sites. We can track movement patterns of visitors based on navigation data by supporting quarantine policies and administrative affairs, and analyze tourism trends in accurate manners. And this is the open-based ecosystem. And this real-time congestion level analysis system is the second case of the nation. In collaboration of public and private data, even after with COVID time, we can prevent further confirmed patients. By using navigation, we had the case of real-time congestion level analysis system for Jeju tourist sites. And we can provide some spatial and temporal information based on the 8 clusters drawn from the analysis results on movement patterns. This is a realization of a real-time congestion level analysis system for Jeju tourist sites. The system can collect the user location information in every 50 meter and 5 meter by utilizing the base station data of operators to provide information on the floating population. Through this real-time level analysis, congestion level analysis service was introduced, Jeju was introduced by UNWTO and many other foreign organizations for benchmarking. As mentioned, Korea and Jeju is ready to go back to the normal daily lives by increasing interest in Jeju. With COVID, could be an opportunity for tourism, but a risk at the same time in terms of pandemic responses. So we need to strengthen risk management to recover the tourism market and the local economy, and that is our job as a local government. In particular, Jeju needs more overseas tourists coming back, and that is our future task. Under the mission of quarantine measures and safe tourism, we will continue for our promotion and marketing. You know, Squid Game, the drama, mentioned Jeju, and now we are gaining more attention. Newsweek introduced Jeju as Korean Hawaii. And promotion office will be established, and in November we plan to invite some overseas internet influencer, and natural friendly environment can promote Jeju as a safe and sustainable tourist destination. Regarding that, UNWTO has a certificate for Seogwipo Hayo Maul. And UNWTO pay attention to this village to recommend to overseas tourists. And we plan to do some collaboration projects with the private sectors. By introducing travel bubble, we can draw more overseas tourists back, and a visa waiver service will be resumed. Also, Direct flights are the key to draw more foreign investors back. And by utilizing UNWTO offices, we are going to promote what we are doing right now. And I would like to thank Chairperson Seong-Hwa, Ok-Inawas, North Bali, and Swapang-u Hainan, Dileka Kudatik, Ushad Mohammed, and all the participants, including Director Hwang Hae-guk and Daisy Park, deserve my appreciation. And I hope to have a further discussion so that we can move to the next level discussion for the development of Jeju tourism. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a comprehensive presentation on the quarantine system using high-end technology and sustainable tourism of Jeju Island. He also talked about the destination congestion analysis system developed by the Jeju Tourism Organization. I hope that there will be continued efforts to make such an incredible achievements. We had discussions on big data analysis in the previous session. Recently in Jeju Island, there are a lot of researches going on big data analysis and utilization. SARS, MERS, COVID-19, which is still ongoing, and other infectious diseases are areas where big data and text mining technology are utilized to understand the disease impact on the tourism industry. To talk about the Jeju Island, right after the end of SARS, there was a huge recovery of the tourism sector of Jeju Island. And after COVID-19 is over, we'll be able to obtain an understanding how much Jeju tourism will grow further. And we will also better understand the workstation tendency based on analysis of unstructured, structured data and using data mining technology. XXX is preference and XXY is growth potential. And the city of Jeju or Jeju Island has achieved a lot of growth potential and also scored a high point for preference. And especially the city of Seogwipo has a lot of growth potential. Sampling research has a lot of errors, but big data analysis produces highly accurate outcomes. So big data or research using big data is quite active in Jeju. Now let us turn to the second speaker. The next speaker is Ayuinda Yustikarni, Head of Marketing Division from Bali Government Tourism Office. He's joining us online. Before COVID-19, Bali used to receive 600 million inbound tourists, but because of COVID, the number went down to 1 million. But recently, Bali is getting ready to open its borders to receive international guests. Now, Mr. Yustikarini, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, the Chairperson of Jeju Tourism Science Society, distinguished speakers, discussants, and participants of the second session of the 5th ITOP Forum Seminar. My name is Indah. I am the head division of Bali Tourism Marketing and assigned by the Vice Governor to share some information on Bali readiness to welcome the international tourists. And let me share some information on our readiness. to welcome back the international tourists. It is still working.
잠시만요. 화면이 지금 예.
Okay, distinguished speakers and participants, I divide my presentations into 4 outlines. The first one is COVID-19 impacts to Bali economy, because when we're talking about economy in Bali, it means that we are talking about tourism sector. And then the second outlines is the COVID-19 situation in Bali. And the third outlines is Bali readiness to welcome the international tourists. And the last one is the strategies to protect health as well as recover tourism and economy in Bali. Distinguished participants, Bali is a province that depends heavily on the tourist sector, which is before COVID-19, it contributed to Bali economy 53%. And in average, more than 1 million people working in tourism sector. Meanwhile, the population of Bali is only 4.2 million people. Certainly, ladies and gentlemen, this COVID-19 has given hard and difficulties time for Bali. I will give you a comparison between 2019 with 2020. There was a decrease in foreign tourist visiting as much as minus 83.26%, and then domestic tourists decreased by minus 56.41%. Meanwhile, Bali hotel and restaurants revenues decreased by minus 71.35%. Ladies and gentlemen, we can say that the Bali economy contractions is the lowest in Indonesia. In the last year, in 2020, the Bali economy contractions is minus 0.31%. As I said before, this is the sharpest decline in all of Indonesia provinces. And we do realize, because we are still in pandemic situation, the key to recover tourism and economy sector in Bali is to recover the health sector first. The first one, of course, we are implementing COVID-19 health protocols, such as wearing masks, social distancing, and pay attention more to cleanliness. And then we have prepared 62 recommended hospitals for COVID-19 cases. And of course, we also built a solid coordination between all government levels. It is started from the central government in Jakarta, all of the ministry, and then of course with Bali, both these provincial levels supported with regencies, city, and the most bottom level, village levels. The first one that is very important, we have to create herd immunity in Bali. So we have accelerated COVID-19 vaccine program. And the latest data per 2nd November of 2021, first phase vaccinated community is more than 100% already. And then the second phase is about 87%. Of course, to do this big program, there is an integrated works with military and police department, private sectors, and tourism institutions. And our vaccination target are health workers, public workers, including the tourism workers, the elderly people, as well as for teenagers. And then the most important things I want to share with all of you is the situation of COVID-19 in Bali Island as of November 2nd, 2021. I can say when it was compared to July, the last July, the highest cases in Bali is happened in July the 13th, 2021. It was 1,910 people. And November 2nd, it is only 17 people confirmed as positive COVID-19 and 0 people died because of COVID-19. So the cases decreased more than 99%. I can say that the herd immunity is successfully created in Bali. And of course, we have prepared also our tourism facilities as public facilities to welcome back the international tourists to Bali. We have done CHSA implementation protocols in all of tourism facilities with WHO and Indonesia Health Ministry standards. Bali tourism industry, ladies and gentlemen, such as hotels, travel agents, tourism transports, and tourism attractions have received the CHSA certificates to ensure to the clients and guests that they will provide the hospitality in health protocols adaptation. In Bali, we have 1,576 tourism facilities that has already given CHSA certificates by the ministry. And this number continues to increase since the Minister for Tourism and Creative Economy of Indonesia has allocated or has given us 1,200 CHSA programs. And I will share to you the recommended tourist attractions in Bali because we are still living in COVID-19 pandemic. So we offer to you the outdoor attractions that will be loved by the tourists, not just international, but of course, domestic tourists. We have clean and beautiful beaches like Sanur in Denpasar, and then Virgin Beach in Karangasem or Nusa Dua area. And tourists can do outdoor activities like sightseeing or learn culture and traditional life of Bali in community-based tourism or tourism villages. We have Penglipuran village in Bangli Regency. Penglipuran village, ladies and gentlemen, is well known as the cleanest village in the world. And we also have Pinggan sunrise spot. This is located up high on the hill where you can see the sun rises over foggy village. These tourist attractions, of course, already apply CHSE standards as well. And other than those attractions, of course, Bali offers to shop places where tourists can find local products. And I can tell you in this pandemic situation, the creativity of Balinese community is even more improving. Bali also has started to promote not just tourism sector, but also economy creative or economy products based on people's innovations and new ideas. And as the same with the introduction of Jeju Safety Code, the Indonesia government also began to introduce the use of Peduli Lindungi application. Peduli Lindungi, can be translated into English as Care and Protect application. So Peduli Lindungi is Care and Protect application. This is a digital system to trace spread possibilities of COVID-19 in Bali as well as in Indonesia. And overall, the number of public facilities, including tourism facilities that have installed a Peduli Lindungi application is more than 9,000. And we also have prepared procedures or guidelines to welcome foreign tourists in Bali It is, of course, started from the airport, the International Ngurah Rai Airport, and then it is continued to the quarantine hotels. We have so far 53 hotels that can provide the requirements as quarantine places. And also, we have prepared tourist attractions, and then the guidelines is ended again in the International Airport of Ngurah Rai. So these procedures or guidelines have to be obeyed or have to be done by all sectors, all stakeholders or institutions that related to the welcoming of international tourists, like the airport, hotels, tourist attractions, tourism transportations as well. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the finance people or the banking people in Bali recommended that the fast way to recover the economy in Bali is by open the Bali border for the foreign tourists. Requirements for countries that come to Bali, this is made by the ministry's level. This is not made by us here, provincial levels. So the requirements is made by the central government. They have to fulfill the qualification as follows. So the countries that are allowed to enter Bali have to fulfill qualification as follows. WHO reports relate to positivity rate under 5%, and the number of confirmed cases is under 20 per 100,000 population, and the readiness of Bali infrastructure to accept foreign tourists. This one, I can say that we are very ready. And also the travel corridor arrangements and then mutual reconnection agreement. And the potential for visits and high growth of foreign tourists from the country, as well as the availability of direct flights to Bali, Indonesia. Tourist requirements. They have to be completely vaccinated, and they have to show negative COVID-19 results based on RT-PCR tests. Of course, they have to have short visit visa permission or other entry permit to Bali, Indonesia. They have to be able to show proof of booking quarantine hotels and advanced accommodation, as well as tourist transportation that has been verified by CHSA. So the tourist transportation will deliver the international tourists from the airport to the quarantine hotel. And they have to have health insurance worth of a minimum of 100,000 US dollar that can cover COVID-19 cases. And this one willing to go through the quarantine process. Fully vaccinated will be 3 days and 2 nights, and first vaccinated will be 5 days and 4 nights. Frankly speaking, probably because we still have quarantine process until now, since the 14th October, since Bali is open for the international tourists, we haven't got any international tourists yet. Probably because the other destinations already apply 0 quarantine days. So hopefully the central government, our central government, will adjust the regulation to be more flexible and workable. So ladies and gentlemen, in spite of the fact since 14th October of 2021, we haven't got any international tourists yet, but I can tell you, Bali is very ready to be a safe and enjoyable tourist destination. The reason is, first, vaccinated people in Bali is high, even the tourism workers, 100%. and we have implemented end-to-end implementation of CHA standards in tourism facilities and other public facilities. And the last but not least, Bali community discipline to implement health protocols is the highest in Indonesia. 92% of Bali community is very disciplined. This is according to the Indonesia Health Ministry survey. Distinguished participants, speakers, and discussants, that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Matur suksema.
예, 아유인다.
That was Ayuinda Yustakarini, head of the marketing division from Bali government. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. I didn't know that the first vaccination has completed and the second vaccination is almost 87%. And you only had 17 confirmed by now daily, compared to Jeju with the completion of a vaccination about 73%. I guess Bali is more advanced in that sense, and it's very surprising and amazing. CHSE is your certificate, and over 1,500 facilities are certified, and I believe that's something Korea can benchmark. And I can say how wonderful Bali government has been doing in terms of quarantine measures, because it sounds like inbound quarantine guidelines is always an issue for any government, especially central government. Especially you talked about some quarantine, and the quarantine is at tourists' expense. So maybe it's hard to expect more inbound tourists in the near future. But still, you have inbound guidelines, like maybe like less than 5% of confirmed patient. You have some measures, and we have some duty-free industry and the casino industry trying to come up with some alternatives to bring more inbound tourists. So in that sense, there's something that we can learn a lot from Bali. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to invite Shofeng-woo, marketing representative of Hainan Provincial Department of China. Hainan is very famous for vibrant and robust duty-free zone, especially the free trade port. In 2020, the construction plan was announced, and by 2023, there will be the world's biggest free trade port in Hainan, China. So I would like to hand over my microphone to Mr. Wu.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shofeng Wu, marketing representative from the Department of Tourism, Culture, Radio, Television, and Sport of Hainan Province, China. Today, I'm honored to share with you the story of Hainan Island tourism facing the COVID-19 pandemic and our outlook for the post-COVID-19 era. Dating back to the first outbreak of COVID-19 in China from December 2019 to February 2020, Hainan Island was not an exception from the whole country. Flights were suspended, hotels closed, events canceled, shopping malls closed, popular attractions deserted, and people had to stay home to accept quarantine. Tourism industry in Hainan was severely affected by the pandemic. However, thanks to China's zero COVID test and quarantine policy, in March 2020, the domestic spreading of COVID-19 was successfully controlled within China. The tourism industry in Hainan experienced a strong recovery. Here are what we did to revitalize tourism. First, In March 2020, Hainan Provincial People's Government launched a plan to revitalize the tourism industry in an effort to reduce the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. The plan features 13 measures in 6 aspects, including strengthening financial support, stimulating tourism consumption, and conducting national promotion. The plan applies to 7 kinds of tourism enterprises that have registered in Hainan, including travel agencies, tourist attractions, hotels, cruise and yacht enterprises. In total, the provincial government will embark more than $21 million to support tourism companies. Second, because of the surging of the global pandemic and closure of international borders, China's tourists were encouraged to stay within China. This gave Hainan an opportunity to attract more mainland Chinese tourists. Many of them who used to travel to tropical island destinations in Southeast Asia now chose to tropical destinations such as Hainan, such as Sanya, Haikou, Lingshui, these cities in Hainan Island, which were traditionally more expensive. In this way, although Hainan's foreign visitors dropped significantly, the domestic visitors from mainland China exceeded the year earlier figure before the pandemic struck. Third, in June of 2020, Hainan welcomed an historical development opportunity from the central government of China. The Chinese central government support Hainan with the rapid, high-level construction of free trade zone and free trade port with Chinese characteristics. Hainan is under construction to be an international tourism consumer center, which will attract a quarter of consumer demand to Hainan by expanding the space for tourism spending, improving the quality of tourism consumer services, and promoting the internationalization of tourism. Following that, Hainan now enjoys preferential duty-free policies, with the annual purchase quota per shopper was set at more than $16,000, and many more favorable changes, including the addition of more product and categories. Duty-free shopping procedures were simplified, and online sales of duty-free goods were expanded. Many more mainland tourists came to Hainan for shopping. Fourth, and most importantly, China implemented normalized circuit breaker mechanism for cross-province travel. Hainan, as well as other provinces in China, are doing excellent work in normalizing the prevention and control of the COVID-19 crisis. For example, on August 5th this year, a COVID-19 infection was confirmed in Haikou, the capital of Hainan. China's Ministry of Culture and Tourism ordered to suspend cross-province travel in 10 provinces, including Hainan, Hunan provinces, and Beijing, Shanghai municipalities, to combat the Delta outbreak across the country. After 14 days of strict prevention and control measures, fortunately, no more COVID-19 infection was found in Hainan. We resumed cross-province group tours organized by travel agencies, as well as other entertainment activities across the province after the entire province risk level for COVID-19 was lowered to low risk. These agencies and companies cannot organize tour groups heading for medium or high risk areas, nor can they accept tour groups coming from medium or high risk areas. Those who enter or return to Hainan from COVID hit area within 14 days must have 2 negative nucleic acid test results taken within 24 hours in between each test. Similar Delta outbreaks in Jiangsu, Fujian provinces were successfully contained in the same way. Looking into the future, given that the prevention, control, and vaccination against COVID will be normalized internationally, we believe that cross-border international tourism will also be normalized. Hainan's recent international promotion has emphasized online promotion. We are focused on promoting the image of Hainan International Tourism Island an international tourism consumer center at sunny Hainan Vacation Paradise, segmenting the market according to overseas pandemic situation and planning a series of publicity and promotion activities based on their feasibility and marketability. In this way, we will promote the recovery of the inbound tourism market. At the same time, Hainan will continue to focus on the development of online platforms, effectively leveraging the advantages and strong influence of online media, enabling international consumers to virtually explore Hainan and break through the impact of the pandemic on cross-border level. We will do our best to improve the level of internationalization and prepare to restart the inbound market. First, promote policy improvement, facilitate the entry of tourists via the 59-country visa-free entry policy, in coordination with entry policies and international promotion. This will encourage the transformation of Hainan into a high-quality international tourist destination. Second is the improvement of promotional materials, including the creation of a Hainan tourism publicity and promotion database, and updating and producing new variants of multilingual publicity brochures and Hainan tourism publicity videos. Third is to strengthen the training of international representatives by means of international students' use of social media and other channels for China tourism, publicity, and promotion. Fourth is to develop a publicity platform. An online international platform is operating to maintain the visibility of Hainan tourism during the global pandemic. Fifth is to increase policy awareness, strengthening cooperation with overseas media, enhancing overseas media exposure to Hainan tourism, and promoting the development of the Hainan Free Trade Port. Sixth is to enhance relationship with large domestic tourism groups and jointly organize related industry conferences. Seventh is the orderly resumption of multi-dimensional invitation work. When the pandemic is under control in China and in major source markets, we will encourage and support major source market tour operators and Hainan ground travel agencies in carrying out invitation study tour activities. For example, collaboration with key travel agents, news media, local artists, travel experts, and tourism department officials, as well as supporting the resumption of Hainan tourism trips that were unable to be completed due to the pandemic. As the next step, Hainan will rely on the special policies of the Hainan Free Trade Port, conduct an in-depth study of the tourism needs of Chinese and international consumers in both the domestic and international market, develop Hainan into an internationally renowned holiday paradise, a medical tourism paradise, and a shopping paradise, and a high ground for exhibitions. Here, I would also like to sincerely thank everyone from around the world and those from many different industries for their support to the development of Hainan's tourism industry. At the same time, I warmly welcome everyone to invest in Hainan, travel to Hainan, meet in Hainan, and participate in the grand plan of developing the free trade port. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Shuafeng. Well, I think you have a really great voice. Maybe that's really useful since you are a marketing representative. Maybe we have to have a representative for our marketing efforts, somebody who has a really good voice. So he talked about a number of policies of the Hainan region. And there are a lot of people who are visiting Hainan these days. There is a free trade port. And maybe that's the way forward for Hainan. As was mentioned, shopping, duty-free shopping is one of the areas that we obtain funding. $16,000 is equivalent to around 20 million Korean won. That's the duty-free limit. And there's no regulation on the number of duty-free shopping per tourist, I understand. So airport duty-free shops and city center duty-free stores in Korea have very low ceiling for duty-free shopping. So I think Korean duty-free shopping is way behind that of China and Hainan. And I think we have to learn from and make necessary change, learn from Hainan duty-free shopping policies and change our policies. The previous speaker talked about the flexibility that is required from the central government. And the Hainan local government, I think, is very flexible, as you mentioned, more so than the central government. It is the case for Jeju as well. We are being very independent, and we should be more flexible than the central government is. You talked about the visa-free entry policy that you're planning with 59 countries. And Jeju also need to think about similar policies when we open our borders in full. A few years ago, maybe a decade ago, I visited Hainan. And one of the issues that I asked in Hainan tourism was the oversupply of Hainan tourism. That was the answer that I obtained from one of the government officials. Jeju has a similar problem. We have oversupply of accommodation. And I wonder whether your oversupply problem has been solved. And I'd like to also understand the tap water, traffic congestion, and waste management are being done well in responding to the increasing number of incoming or inbound tourists. Maybe I hope that we'll have opportunity to listen from you about these questions. Next, I'd like to invite Dileka Kudakuchi, Governor Secretary of Southern Province of Sri Lanka. Their border was opened recently, but I'm not sure whether the border is still open because of the recent economic difficulties of the country. So the floor is yours. You can start your presentation.
Good evening and good day to all of you. I'm Dileka Kudachi, the Governor Secretary of Southern Province. Today I wish to share with you the experiences that how Southern Province deal with the COVID. First of all, let me show you my presentation outline. First, I wish to introduce Southern Province in very briefly. Then I wish to tell you about the background of my presentation, what is the global concepts and what are the local concepts we use to develop Southern Province tourism. Then I would like to tell you about some controlling efforts that how we control COVID-19 in Southern Province in 4 waves. And then I wish to tell you about the obstacles now we are facing after the post-COVID era. And also, finally, I wish to tell you about the transformational themes that we are following to recover the damage and what are the things we are following, what are the things we are focusing on for the recovery of the tourism industry of Southern Province. This is the map of southern province. As you see, the southern province is situated in the bottom of Sri Lanka. There are 9 provinces in Sri Lanka, and in southern province we have 3 districts: Galle, Matara and Hambantota. The land area is 5,344 square kilometers, and the population is 2.5 million. As you see in the map, our province is bordering the coastal belt of the Indian Ocean. Southern province is enriched with lots of tourism destinations such as waterfalls, beautiful beaches and forests and rivers, and especially we have many varieties of environmental and climate conditions in the same province. It had a thriving tourism industry before COVID, and tourism was the 3rd largest export earner for the southern province before COVID. And let me tell you about the background of my presentation. And we are following 2 global concepts, 2 sustainable development goals to recover our tourism industry. First one is SDG 3, that it says all the countries should ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. And the second one is SDG 8, that says all the countries should promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. We use these 2 SDGs to, we are following these 2 SDGs to develop our tourism industry. And also, according to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the Southern Provincial Council is established, and the legislative power is with this provincial council. So to promote tourism in southern province, we had created a agency, that is Ruhunu Tourism Bureau. The name Ruhunu is the ancient name for southern, and this Ruhunu Tourism Bureau has already created a strategic plan for 2020 to 2025. In this, we have find the long-term and short-term goals to the implement of tourism industry. Now, after the COVID pandemic, we are refocusing and reorganizing the strategies towards COVID. And let me tell you very few things about the COVID controlling effort, how we control COVID. That first one is that we had a provincial health committee, that the Honorable Governor of Southern Province is the head of this committee. The members of the committee is the parliament members of Southern Province and the provincial council members of Southern Province, and also the officials of Southern Province who are dealing with COVID. So we face 4 waves till now. At that critical time, we gathered once a week and shared our information, especially the health information, and took decisions to control COVID in Southern Province. And we have the vaccination program in Southern Province. Now we vaccinated almost 62% of the total population of Southern Province, and the vaccination program is going on now even. And we have disinfection programs, especially in public places. And in this program, we especially focus on the tourism destinations. That's by this, we try to control the spread of the disease. And we have a good cure program. The people who are affected, the patients were cured with the help of the health sector. In hospitals, we have cure centers, and also we have public health inspectors' help, and we had cure in our homes also. And we have the quarantine programs. For this, we use two methods. One is the quarantine centers. We maintain many quarantine centers in southern province, and also we have the home quarantine system. With the help of public health inspectors, some of the people were quarantined at their own homes, and by this also we try to control the spread of the disease. And we have to implement quarantine curfew in the 4 waves. We have sometimes very critical situation. For these critical situations, we implemented the quarantine curfew all over the southern province. And also we had transport barriers because in Sri Lanka, the western province is the most affected area. So we had to control the people came from the western province to southern province. So we had transport barriers in the borders of the southern province. And we critically introduced the health guidelines about the social distance, wearing mask, washing hands, and other things we have to maintain to avoid the COVID. So we prepared many studying programs for the general public as well as the people, as well as the officers who are involving in COVID control. With these all efforts, we could control in southern province up to certain extent, but even though with this control, 1,730 people were died because of corona till now. And I have to say that the tourism industry that earlier I said it is the third export owner for the southern province, but now the tourism industry is totally collapsed in southern province. And we had the community PCR tests in the past. Even now we are handling this community PCR test. By this we are doing we are identifying the most critical areas and where are the places we have to give more attention, and we do the treatments for them. Generally, southern province after COVID, before COVID even, generally southern province faced some obstacles regarding the tourism industry development. But after COVID, it was more critical situation we are facing in more critical conditions. Let me tell you about the main 4 things. The first one is coordination failures, poor coordination and communication between government, ministries, institutions and stakeholders. You know that some health decisions were taken by the health institutions, and the marketing decisions were taken by the marketing institutions. Sometimes there's a conflict between them, and this is a very bad failure for the development of southern tourism. And also we have institutional failures, as the provincial council is the legislative authority for southern province. For COVID control, we have a central COVID committee. This is at the central government. So most of the decisions were taken by the central COVID committee. So we have to apply them, even they are applicable for southern province or not, we have to apply them. And also because of that, conflicts between local communities, institutions and investors has negatively affected tourism related projects. And also we have the resource failures that even before COVID, southern provinces lack of resources, but after COVID we have to spend our most of the finance on COVID control, to maintain the hospitals, to maintain the quarantine centers, and to maintain the social distance and other things. So we have to spend a lot on that. So now we are very exactly less investment in tourism industry development. Also, we only vaccinated 62% of the total population of Southern Province. We have to complete it to the 100% as soon as possible. And also we are facing marketing failures. That's the limited resources allocated on destination development now. And also it is a requirement that we have to develop safety destinations. It is totally essential, but with the market failures, we are facing lots of problems preparing safety destinations to the tourists. And also lack of effective mechanism to manage, standardize and enforce best practices to ensure safety is identified. However, even with COVID-19, Southern Province restarted the effort to come back from this gloomy period, and by formulating and implementing new strategies and mechanisms, we try to improve the conditions of our province to be a major tourism destination. For this, we identified 6 transformational themes. The first one is improving governance regulation, and also we wish to understanding visitors where they come and what are their expectations and ensure the safety of them. And also we are focusing on marketing and communicating effectively. And also we are developing sustainable and safety destination for the tourists. Again, we are focusing on lifting industry standards, and then we are focusing on engaging the workforce and communities to develop the tourism industry in Southern Province. Anyhow, we have lots of hopes on 2022, and we would like to assert with optimal expectations with enhanced determinations with coverage to improve the tourist standards of Southern Province to a better tomorrow. And now I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you all for hearing me. Thank you so much, everyone.
예, 감사합니다.
Thank you. It was Deleka Kudakuchi, the Governor Secretary of Southern Province of Sri Lanka. Have very attractive natural resources, and I understand that you went through some difficulties, but thanks to your quarantine measures and mid to long-term government policy, hopefully national tourism will pick up very soon. We just finished listening to all 4 presentations, and I would like to introduce the first panel discussant, Deputy Minister Naushad Mohammed, Minister of Maldives Ministry of Tourism. And they've had some successful cases in the tourism. I would like to hand over my microphone to Deputy Minister Mohammed.
Speakers and presenters, I would like to share our success story of Maldives with you. To begin with, Maldives has 1,192 coral islands, of which 200 are inhabited. During the COVID pandemic, financial institutions projected that Maldives is among the top 3 countries in Asia to be hardest hit. In fact, it was predicted that our GDP will fall by 29.7%. And when the real figures came out in for 2020, it was 36.1% fall. So during July, when we decided to reopen the Maldives, I would like to share that according to the UNWTO at that time in July 2020, about 80 countries decided to open their borders for foreign tourists. And among those 80 countries, 20 were small island destinations which depended on tourism as foreign income. So Maldives was not an exception, but a part of 20 similar destinations which heavily dependent on tourism. But in 2021, so far we have been able to recover our GDP with a plus 12.1%, so we are recovering. While tourism contributes to about 20% of the GDP, 44,000 employees work in tourist resorts, and of these, about 22,000 employees have been directly or indirectly affected because of redundancy or loss of employment. So to recover for the guidelines, we closely followed countries which has been affected by SARS. So because in Maldives we have never had a health crisis, we did not want to trial and test. So we closely monitored the policies and guidelines that were being applied by countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia, which also shared the same route for our source markets like China. So in that regard, we were following countries which were better prepared. We also followed very closely the reports and guidelines that were being produced by UNWTO, guiding destinations to recover and rebuild tourism better. So to begin with, first we allow tourists to go to tourist resort islands. In Maldives, we have a very different concept where resort island means you have one hotel in one island. So it's just one management, one hotel, and their staff, there are no local inhabitants. So at the beginning, the employees were not allowed to move out of the island. So it's like a quarantine facility for the staff, but tourists were allowed to move. So when we bring tourists straight from international airport to the resort and back, it was very safe for the tourists. Then the biggest challenge was opening in local islands. So before we started, we asked the council to get consent from the locals. So when the locals agree to bring in tourists, then only we register the existing hotels in local islands to restart tourism. So in this way, taking a proactive measure, we made the islands ready to receive tourists. Today, I can say that 95% of islands have been vaccinated, which has tourist facilities have been vaccinated, and the average stay of tourists have increased from 6 days to 9.1. And in 2020, just last week, we have reached about 1 million tourists, and next year we anticipate to get about 1.8 million, which is about 100,000 more than 2019 figures. So overall, I would say that Maldives have been blessed by having geographically dispersed islands which are very ideal for tourists to visit. And I would also encourage other similar destinations to start reopening the borders and have trust in tourists. In many of our resorts, we don't even require the masks. Except in closed areas, they can act like normal. So we are already back to normalcy in many islands as well. So I wish good luck for the destinations which are preparing themselves to receive international tourists. Thank you.
There was Deputy Minister of Maldives Ministry of Tourism. I think Maldives has the most optimal condition amid COVID-19 pandemic. Tourism has a lot of contribution to the tourism industry and the economy, and you have a lot of things planned for next year. Now I'd like to turn to Mr. Harry Hwang, Director of Regional Department for Asia and the Pacific from UNWTO. When the COVID pandemic was announced, UNWTO Global Tourism Privacy was announced. So there was a lot of activities that happened at the UNWTO level.
Foremost, on behalf of World Tourism Organization, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Honorable Madame Kwon-Soo, the CEO of Jeju Tourism Organization, and Jeju Provincial Government for your kind invitation to myself and my colleague Nuri Kim for this very important 5th edition of the ITOP International Policy Seminar, and inviting UNWTO to share the common area of interest and issues on post-COVID-19 era where the island tourism has to go. I believe this seminar is a very crucial event where the very concrete policies and recommendations could be reviewed to enable the local island destination to adopt their immediate policy for implementation. So with that said, I would wish to share two main areas. First, what UNWTO has done, particularly to those island destinations in terms of responding the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And secondly, what island destinations have done with their core action against COVID-19 that we had very good, the presentation just now. As for the UNWTO responses to deliver more effective coordinated effort and the collective support that our facilitator already mentioned, that UNWTO established what we call Global Tourism Crisis Committee right after the WHO, World Health Organization, announced the COVID-19 as pandemic in public. So throughout our 8 meeting, that the committee endorsed the UNWTO recommendation to restart the tourism. That is something that we encourage our members how to follow some standardized, the protocol procedure. And then this has very much focus on 4 particular areas, including resuming the safe cross-border travel and also promoting the safe travel every single part of the journey. And now for first a few initiatives and activity what the Regional Department for Asia and the Pacific has done through the various webinar or product initiative and publication that UNWTO organized the very exclusive training program on capacity building for sustainable tourism in island country. And also we organized the workshop for the sustainable tourism product development in the Pacific island country. For the first time, we organized in a hybrid format with more than 160 participants in Fiji. And then we are currently working for producing what is called Pacific Island Tourism Storybook, which capture the different voices of the people in tourism that they suffer the COVID-19, and then their extra effort to overcome the tourism recovery at their own level. For the best practices, what implemented by many island destinations, we have seen already very impressive the presentation, the measure introduced by Jeju provincial government, and also our colleague Indonesia, Bali, mentioned very impressive initiative, what called CHSE. And obviously the success story and inspiring story that we just heard from the Maldives. So certainly there are many cases, but I don't think that I can go beyond elaboration because of the time constraint. But we will be certainly happy to share written format to the ITOP Secretariat. And in conclusion, there's two keywords in this unprecedented crisis that most cases that we talk about it. And then we all have to remember is sustainability and digital transformation. And we just talk about big data. So I wish to share the UNWTO's solid commitment to work with you all destinations, of course with the Jeju Tourism Organization, to explore the further collaboration to enhance these two important issues and also the endorsement of safe travel with Corona. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your words, Director Mr. Hwang. So the crisis committee was organized as soon as possible, and content development, so storytelling, and best practices of tourist destinations were expanded. Last but not least, we have Ms. Daisy Park, representative of Pacific Tourism Organization. The Pacific Tourism Organization represents the Pacific Islands and other island destinations in the region. Hello everyone, I'm Daisy Park from Pacific Tourism Organization. The Pacific Tourism Organization is not yet a member of ITOP Forum. I wanted to really participate in this forum because for the past 2 years, we've been working on how we should reopen our borders and promote the tourism industry, because the Pacific was the region that closed its borders earlier than others. For the Samoa Islands, in 2018, there was a measles outbreak and the border was already closed, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, the country was almost shut down. So there are only 2 locations, Fiji and Palau, that receive international guests. Palau is open, but you have to quarantine for 5 days. So I've been only doing research for the past 2 years. I think Jeju Island is the best case. CAPA, the aviation trend analyzer, said that Jeju Island was the first destination that had the airliner with 100% occupancy. Now, Korean people can travel domestically, and there is a lot of research going on for the case of Jeju. Jeju is really ready, and I don't think there are other places where they are ready as much as Jeju is. I think Jeju must be able to provide assistance to other island states and Pacific destinations so that they can also reopen their border. I am also the Indonesia Tourism Organization head. We have about 30,000 islets that we have to take care of. Of course, I am working in this field because I have love for islands, and it is really difficult because air connectivity is pretty weak. And we have to have a lot of good attractions developed to attract people to visit. After this COVID-19 pandemic, if we reopen the borders and receive inbound tourists, we should be able to provide solutions for the existing problems. And I was able to identify one keyword that will be really useful. In tourism industry, services are really important. It's SVC. SVC is really important because, as was all mentioned, security or safety is really important, and value. And C is really related to the unique characteristics and contents of island destinations. For security, we are really weak. In smart tourism, we have to provide Wi-Fi connections and we should collect data, but Wi-Fi is usually not available on island destinations, so it's really difficult for island states and island destinations to collect data, and there is no depression medical facility. That's why those states were closed earlier than others. There are no other quarantine facilities available. Usually, there are big halls where the places host people who have to quarantine. So those are some of the weaknesses for island destinations. They have really strong cultural characteristics, but when it comes to infectious disease quarantine, even if we have good data, those good technologies cannot really be applied. So there are these environmental limitations, and it is really important to develop good response measures that could be applicable by island destinations. For Fiji, they developed a tracker system, and from the entry to exit, the visitors can be tracked and traced. Of course, you have to be fully vaccinated, and these are regulations that are already commonly enforced in other countries. But maybe these island states need additional quarantine measures to ensure safety and security. Maybe those island states and destinations can learn from the cases of Jeju Island. Second, talking about the value aspect. Islands are not really recovered as long as somebody visits. On continents, you can drive by certain facilities and destinations, but for islands, you have to actually make a visit to discover the island. So you have to make people to actually make a visit. That means you should propose a value. What I really feel in my responsibility is, in Bali, they have really attractive destinations, but Fiji, it's more expensive and it's far away. So you have to highlight the value. You have to identify the uniqueness of your destinations. But it's not really, it is not really related to the COVID-19. You have to really identify and highlight the uniqueness. For Indonesia, so there is a Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. I understand they're trying to reduce their dependency on tourism in their economy. They are trying to develop other resources and technology. There was a government initiative to be more creative, and there's a community-based tourism as well. So we have to really go back and understand the importance of SVC. All the policies should be based on SVC. We find weak governance in certain destinations, and that there are other destinations with strong governance, and maybe Jeju's assistance for those island destinations will be really important.
Thank you, Ms. Park. It was a good opportunity to get to know about these island countries in Pacific areas, and I guess ITOP members are in a little better position, so probably we can provide some insights and some best practices to those countries. And that wraps up at the second session with 4 presentations and 3 discussants comment. And any questions from the floor, perhaps? For any speakers or any panel discussants from the floor? If not, I do have a question for Mr. Shaw Fang Woo. Are you able to hear me and answer? Ready for the answer? Please. Could you speak for the question I earlier asked? I talked about oversupplying tourism issues in the past and some waste issues, waste treatment and the recycling due to some oversupplying of tourism. What's your take on that?
준비가 안 돼 있으신가? 혹시 그러면
Thank you for the question. As for the oversupply for tourism development, that happened in Hainan as well. And during the past decades, Hainan established many hotels, including well-known brands in Sanya along the coast. Normally, the occupancy rate of the hotels are meeting the marketing demands. But after the pandemic, many of the hotels did not have enough guests to stay. And we also noticed this problem. And our solution is to improve the service quality and improve the hotel standard, and to apply new technology, especially the environmental friendly technology and materials, to upgrade our services, our facilities, and to build our hotels more environment friendly. And this is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wu. If no more question, that wraps up session 2. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Chairperson Hong, speakers, and all the experts on the podium. Let's give them another big round of applause. Thank you. And it was an opportunity to get to know about how the ITOP member regions deal with the COVID-19, and it was a great opportunity to share our ideas. And that wraps up the session 2 of today's program. And hopefully, discussion with many can find answers for you while living with the COVID-19. And also, I hope both locals and tourists can safely enjoy their tour in smarter and safer manners. And I wish we paved the way towards such smarter and safer tourism. That wraps up the 5th ITOP International Policy Seminar under the topic of in the post-COVID era. Thank you very much, and that's it for today, and stay safe.
Record.